What's going on, everyone? My name is Cyan, and in today's episode, I'm going to show you 4 steel builds that will take you from your basic starter factory all the way to an ultimate steel factory, producing everything from steel beams and steel pipe to heavy modular frames. If that's something you're interested in, be sure to stay tuned. Let's get into the video. Alright, so the first build is going to just be our basic starter build. So this is going to take in 120 coal and 120 iron ore. We're going to put that into 3 foundries that we have underclocked to 40 per minute, and that's going to turn our iron ore and coal into 120 steel ingots. So we're going to take those steel ingots and we're going to bring them up into these 3 constructors here. 2 of them are set to make steel pipes for a total of 40 per minute, and the other one is set to make steel beams for a total of 15 per minute. See, we've been running for a minute here, already getting some stock built up. This is just a nice simple build that you can slap down very quickly. Doesn't take a lot of room, as you see, nice 8x5 footprint to get your first set of steel parts so you can unlock the next milestones and eventually upgrade to a more advanced build. This is going to be what I call the basic steel factory. This layout will form the base for our next one, which will form the base for our next one. So if you do plan on building the ultimate factory here, I would start with about a 20 by 20 area. However, for starting out, all we need is an 8 by 14 platform. I've color coded each upgrade that we make. So the basic foundation here is blue. When we add on to the next section, we do that in the red pieces. And then when we add on to the final section, it is all the green areas. So hopefully that makes it a little easier to follow along. The most important thing about this factory is that it is mostly built using blueprints. So if that's a video that you guys would be interested in seeing, blueprint design for a factory like this, let me know. When 1.0 comes out, I'll be doing this in survival mode, but if you want more of a how-to style video, let me know down below. Let's go ahead and jump into our first actual layout. So the first thing we're going to do is start from the beginning. So we're going to take in 120 coal, 120 iron, and 120 limestone. Focusing on the coal and the iron, we are going to first take advantage of a new alternate recipe. That alternate recipe is solid steel ingot, and what this does is takes iron ingots and coal at 40 per minute each and gives us an output of 60 steel ingots per minute. So this is a 2-to-3 ratio, which is obviously better than our 1-to-1 ratio from before. So we're now getting 180 steel ingots for 120 coal and 120 iron. This layout, of course, has to incorporate the smelters. So we've gone ahead and done that, and I've routed the belts underneath. Also, you can see our coal going through as well, and the iron ore down here. The nice part about this design is, like our towers over here, we can stack this on top of itself, as we did here, and effectively grow our factory without increasing our footprint. Embrace verticality. All right, coming to the end of the steel foundry, our output here is split with a smart splitter. So what this does is sends 60 steel per minute up into a constructor making steel ingots, and it sends the remaining 120 steel up into 4 constructors making steel pipes. Now moving down the line of constructors here, we move to the concrete production. So again, we are bringing in 120 limestone, and that is going to be split into 3 constructors to make a total of 40 concrete per minute. You underclock the last one here. This is sent up and output here. So the first one I want to talk about is our steel pipes here. They're coming out. We have one going to the right, which is the main line, and then we're sending overflow here out to the left. So let's take a look at the last production line, which is our Encased Industrial beams. So this is actually taking our second alternate recipe for this build, and that is the Encased Industrial pipe. What this does is it lets us take steel pipes in place of steel beams, and also a little less concrete. So thanks to this alternate recipe, we're essentially able to get a lot more out of our initial steel here, and even later on, it comes in very handy when we are building heavy modular frames and stuff like that. And then the last place we will look at is the storage area. And as you can see, all the belts are routing under the floor, and everything collects nicely in one central spot. Again, this is just our basic setup, 50 steel beams per minute. There will be a surplus of 24 steel pipes after we make our encased industrial beams. 2 assemblers are going to make us 8 encased industrial beams per minute. So starting out with our steel setup, you can see we have doubled our steel production, still using the solid steel ingot recipe. Because we have doubled our output, that of course means we need to double our input. We are now taking in 240 coal, 240 iron ore, and lastly, we have added 90 copper ore. The only thing that's changed about this blueprint versus the one below it is the inputs have been flipped so that instead of the inputs coming in on the left, you can see these are now outputting to the left and inputting from the right. The reason we did this is so that we can reroute the existing lines from down below, send them up and in to our next set of foundries. It's the same method that we used for our original blueprints. So with our inputs handled, next thing is to show how the steel comes down. So because we are now producing 360 steel per minute, we need to get a little creative on keeping everything separate so that we don't have any bottlenecks and can efficiently run all of our machines. So the first change that we're going to have to make is to our smart splitter, and that is going to be changing the overflow from the center to the right and switching the center to be the normal output. What this is going to do is send the majority of the steel to our 2 constructors making steel beams. So they will only use 120 per minute. So it will then send the excess 60 to the right, which will merge with our line of 180 coming from above, giving us 240 steel. Moving on from our steel output, we can head into our steel production. And we can now see we're making our 30 steel beams per minute. And we have doubled our steel pipe production to make 160 steel pipes per minute. Now, just like before with the iron and coal, we're routing the steel ingots up and through our next line of constructors for a nice clean look. Alright, so coming to the end of our steel pipe production line, you can see our smart splitter is still here, sending overflow to the left and our main output to the right. Now, the main difference I want to highlight is that instead of connecting directly up to our encased industrial beam production, we're now sending the Mark I pipe to the back of our steel pipe production, where it is joining the new addition and being sent along the main line. So by doing it this way, it seems to work out. It makes sure all of our machines get exactly what they need, and then the excess goes into storage. Now, nothing has changed in terms of our concrete production. We haven't touched our encased industrial beams, so no changes here. We are bringing in 90 copper ore a minute, so almost a full Mark II belt. We are processing that in 3 smelters, making copper ingots, and sending that along into 6 constructors, making 180 wire per minute. Now, just like before, we're using a smart splitter again. I like smart splitters, they work pretty well. So what we've done is we are taking one of our lines here, which is producing a total of 90 wire per minute. We're sending that into a smart splitter, which is splitting it into a right for its main output, and then sending overflow to the left. Now, these 2 lines here are our stator and rotor production, respectively. Important to note, the rotor is the alternate recipe for steel rotors, which allows us to make rotors out of steel pipes and wires, which is very helpful because we make stators out of steel pipes and wires. So it simplifies our production and makes this whole build a lot simpler. If we look at the recipe for rotors, we can see that steel rotors require 30 wire per minute, and that's the case obviously for both of them, to make 5 per minute. So that is 60 wire going to the right, and if we look into our stators, we can see these take 40 per minute, and we are making 3 assemblers worth of stators for a total of 120 wire per minute. So I'm sure you already see where this is going. We have 90 coming in, and we also have 90 from the constructors on the left. Our smart splitter makes sure that the output on the right has a full 60 wire going into the assemblers, and then it will divert the excess, which is 30, to the left, which joins with our other line of 90 to make 120. Now again, this is a situation where I use faster belts than are needed because I just found that when I left this at a Mark II belt, this line particularly got backlogged and wasn't flowing well, and everything just works much smoother now. Now, jumping up top, let's take a look at our steel pipe main line. So we've got a single line bringing all of our steel pipes through the factory. We have it splitting into each production area. So our first setup is our encased pipes, and it is calling for 56 steel pipes per minute. So we're able to divert a Mark I line, and as you can see, it's nicely saturated and fully supplied. We can then move down the line to our next set, which is the stators. We can see again, taking 15 per minute times 3 gives us a total of 45 steel pipes per minute. So again, we can supply that nicely with a Mark I belt. And just like our prior builds, these are using the same method of sending the excess resources up to the next level and continuing that pattern. Our last build here and the end of our production line, calling for 20 steel pipes per minute, which again can easily be satisfied by a Mark I belt. Now the last component of this factory is of course the motor production. So you can see here we have a single assembler making 5 motors per minute. This is consuming 10 of our rotors per minute and 10 of our stators. So we will have no rotors left over, and we will have 5 stators left over, which we can use to make our space elevator parts as well as power storage. Of course, the last section of the build is again the storage area. As we can see on the right, it is the same storage setup that we had from our previous build. And on the left, we've added 2 chests for motors and stators. The final output for our advanced steel factory is 30 steel beams, 39 steel pipes, 8 encased industrial beams, 5 stators, and 5 motors per minute. So let's dive right in. Again, we can see our foundries have been expanded yet again. I won't spend too much time going over it. It's the same layout as the bottom level. You can see our resources are being routed up as well. And down below, we are now taking in 360 coal and 360 iron ore. These are, of course, Mark IV belts. So in terms of our steel outputs, we have upgraded our second line here to a Mark IV belt, and we are combining the new addition into that second line. So we are no longer splitting the bottom line. We are sending the full 180 steel into 3 constructors making steel beams, and then we are sending the remaining 360 steel ingots into our steel pipe production. And the very last thing I wanted to highlight is the connection between the 2 lines of constructors. I just did a simple Mark III belt to connect up on the same level. Moving down to the limestone, you can see that our input has increased to 270 per minute. So I'm actually again using a Mark IV belt just to prevent any lag from the maxed out Mark III. And we've added 3 concrete constructors, and they are all working at 100%. So we're now making 90 concrete a minute. Moving over to the copper, again, sticking with the 90 copper a minute, we are still making our 180 wire, so this area is largely unchanged. Now going back over to our steel pipe production, we can see we have added an additional 4 constructors onto our second level. If you wanted to, you could just build another level up, but the space is here, so may as well use it. I've gone ahead and painted the machines green, so you can see we're on a red level with the green machines to show that these are the new addition. Underneath, we are just routing our new line right here into the existing one. We can see everything is the same as before. We have our belt splitting down below. However, we have now upgraded from a Mark I to a Mark II. That's an important note because instead of, I think it's like 40 steel pipes per minute turning to the right in our first build or second build, now we're taking about 65 per minute from this bottom row. So we need that slightly higher belt speed. But as we can see, everything is building up nicely and heading again down the line. Now, our first advanced production part, which is the encased beams, has been changed a little bit. So again, the layout is the same. However, in order to make the math work out, I had to adjust the production quantities slightly. So for the bottom machines, we are dropping them down to 90% each. This makes it so that they consume a little less concrete and a little less steel, and still give us a nice 3.6 encased beams per minute for a total of 7.2 per minute. So we lose a little bit of encased industrial beam production for our heavy modular frames. So up top here, we have our second set, and these are working at a different ratio. So these are producing the encased industrial beams that are dedicated for our heavy modular frame production. And these down here are going to be dedicated for building. So these two lines will never mix. One will always be going into storage, and one will always be going into heavy modular frames. So moving down to our stator production, you can see that everything is the same. And the same goes for our rotor production. Now at the end of the line here, we've added our modular frames, and we are again using an alternate recipe for the steeled version of that. So instead of using screws and reinforced plates, we are able to use steel pipes and reinforced plates. Now, an important note here is we are only needing 4 reinforced plates a minute, which is very little. So I've just set up a chest here, sending them over. But if this were a real playthrough, I would just be pulling from my existing production of reinforced plates in my base and bringing it over here. I wouldn't set up a whole production area just to make 4 plates. If this scaled up, then it may be worth stamping down one of our blueprints. So depending on what you need, results may vary, but in this situation, we're just going to pretend that this belt is coming from that tower and everything would work just the same. So heading around to the output of our modular frames here, we can see I have routed the steel pipes through to the end of our production line here, which is our heavy modular frame manufacturer. Now, this is our last alternate recipe that we were going to take advantage of, and it is the heavy encased frame. I love this recipe because we do not need screws. Screws, you know what I mean? This recipe is relatively efficient. It costs a reasonable amount of materials, and it gives us a very nice 2.25 heavy modular frames per minute. You can see I did have to underclock this slightly to make the math work out a little nicer. This is our encased industrial beams. For the concrete, because it was such a low quantity of only 16.5 per minute, I basically split off of our current line, and you can see it's got no problem filling these 2 machines here and supplying enough concrete for our manufacturer. So that's our encased industrial beams and our concrete. Can then look down below where we have our modular frames coming from our production, as well as our steel pipes. Now, of course, the last part is sending our heavy modular frames into our storage, which I've just chose to do the easy way and route away from everything else and loop back in. You can see we've simply expanded on and added our next storage chest. So now with our ultimate steel factory, we are producing 45 steel beams. We have a leftover 25 steel pipes, 7.2 encased industrial beams, 5 stators, 5 motors, and 2.25 heavy modular frames. So this factory has been running for quite a while. So we can see the numbers here are building up quite nicely. There we go, almost full on steel beams. Plenty of motors, plenty of stators, and a nice amount of heavy modular frames. So of course, storage could be expanded to however much you want. You could add overflow so that the excess gets awesome synced. You really have a lot of flexibility. And then the best part, let's say you wanted to add more motors. Well, totally could. Just build on some more steel foundries, put down some more steel pipe constructors, up your copper intake, and build the next levels up. So that'll be it for me. If you guys want the world save, I will include it in the description. I'll update the one that's in the Google Drive. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, Be sure to leave a like. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear them. So feel free to write down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. I'm pretty active down there. Not like I'm super popular, you know, so do what we can. And if you guys want to see an in-depth video on how to make these blueprints for yourself, let me know as well. We'd be more than happy to make it. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.